other species who live around us and who really depend on the habitat around us to survive. And so as humans, we know that we've been having an impact on the earth and on the land surface and habitat and biodiversity for not only ourselves, but other species. But we also know that if we act carefully and positively, we can also have a very positive impact on reversing that biodiversity loss and protecting the planet and the home for all species who live here. So today, the idea is that we're going to have our speakers share with you the significance of particularly environmental education, so promoting awareness, understanding, and action towards preserving and conserving biodiversity. We're hoping that by the end of the conversation, you will walk away with some knowledge and on benefits of preserving biodiversity, both in terms of cultural values and ecosystem services, and also some motivation and inspiration to take action and preserve the diversity of life here on Earth. So with that, let's get into our presentations today. We have two fantastic speakers. We're so excited that they agreed to join us today. So first is going to be Dr. Enoch Bessa, and then second is Olumide Idowu. So let me first go towards introducing Dr. Bessa. So Dr. Bessa is currently a lecturer at the Department of Agricultural and Biosystems Engineering of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Ghana. His research interests are broad, and they include climate change, soil and land use science and engineering, water resources management, ecosystem services and integrated assessments and modeling. And he's working on a project called CliMap Africa, where his research will seek to quantify and cost the flood risk mitigation services provided by landscape scale green infrastructure in Nigeria and Ghana in order to contribute to the debate on the payment of ecosystem services as a mitigation and adaptation measure to climate change. So thank you so much, Dr. Bessa. And with that, we'll hand it over to you to share your screen and go ahead and share your presentation with us.
Thank you, Katie. I'm happy to join you this morning, afternoon, or evening. Because of internet, I'll put off my video and focus on the slides so that we'll be able to go through it. Thank you, all who have joined us this morning, afternoon, to be part of the 5th webinar of Park Policy. I'm happy, excited to be here and to be sharing with you a bit of information on the importance of biodiversity and why environmental education is key in achieving the conservation of biodiversity. I'm already introduced, so I think because of time, let me just continue quickly so that we can finish within the demarcated period for the program. My presentation will follow this outline. We'll look at what biodiversity is, and then we come to environmental education, and finally look at indigenous knowledge. Since we are talking about education, which borders on knowledge, how does indigenous knowledge contribute or come in the conservation of biodiversity? Biodiversity, which is biological diversity, is just a contraction or the impact on biodiversity. When we say biodiversity, we are looking at the impact, that's a human impact on biodiversity. The United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity in 1992, they defined it as the variability among living organisms from all sources, including inter alia, terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic ecosystems, and the ecological complexes of which they are part. This includes diversity within species, between species, and of ecosystems. And so biological diversity or biodiversity borders on everything that has to do with living organisms, including us humans, how we affect ourselves within and without. And because of the importance of biodiversity to livelihood, in 2022, the UN International Biodiversity Day of 2022 focused on building a shared future for all lives. And there is this statement that I picked from that program, said when biodiversity has a problem, humanity has a problem. So taking care of biodiversity is just caring for the human environment. As long as we neglect biodiversity, it's more or less like eating our own selves without knowing. And so the focus has been on the restoration of biodiversity. UN has focused on restoring biodiversity because they know the importance of biodiversity. And as it has been contributing to 80% of human diet, which means that if this rich source depreciates or deplete, human diet will also go down and invariably will affect livelihood. This year, as on 22nd May, the International Day of Biodiversity will be focusing on from agreement to action. That's build back biodiversity. During our COP, we have been talking about action, 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 action. But it seems the action is delaying, the talking is becoming too much. So this year, the UN International Biodiversity Day is focusing on agreement. We are moving from agreement. Now we have agreed. We have to take action so that we can restore back biodiversity and restore life or the greenness that we had before industrialization changed everything for us. But what is the importance of preserving biodiversity? If you want to know the role of environmental education in preserving on the importance of preserving biodiversity, then we should look at the contribution of biodiversity to human life. So this can be classified, Tan classified it into 4. That is food and nutrition. And the food and nutrition comprise of the agricultural resilience. Biodiversity helps us in agricultural resilience, gives us higher nutrition. It also gives us provision. It's a provisional ecosystem service, provides sources of food, and ensures food security. On the cultural and economic value, we are able to identify ourselves through biodiversity. It gives us recreation, like some of the waterfalls, parks, the national parks, the reserves that we go to relax. It also gives us energy, which is a major source of economic value in most of our countries. On health, we get medicine from some of the biodiversity, like the plants. We get medicine from plants, from fishes, both the traditional and modern ones. Most of the sources are from biodiversity. They help avoid the spread from wildlife. They also gives us physical and mental health. There are a lot of benefits, especially from ecosystem services, the ones that we've not been able to quantify and attach monetary value to. It's still ongoing. Research has not been able to come up with the specific value, monetary value for some of the services we benefit from these biodiversity, but they are enormous. Also, they help to regulate climate. They help in climate adaptation. They improve our microclimate, as well as the water cycle, sustaining the water cycle. So these are the things that environmental education is helping us to attain. Unless we know them, we didn't know how important it is to protect the environment. Quickly, there are 5 major threats to biodiversity conservation. Land and sea use. Currently, about 1/3 of our land area is being utilized for crop and livestock production. There are overexploitation of resources, biodiversity resources. Climate change is another thing that is threatening. I read the press release of the UNESCO or UNEP director. The biodiversity loss is increasing because of climate change. And so we need to look at addressing them together. If you take climate change on its own and you leave biodiversity, you'll be just solving one part of the coin. Pollution is another threat to biodiversity, and invasive species. Invasive species is destroying most of the things that is giving us the livelihood that we are enjoying. So if these things are threatening what sustains livelihood, what is environmental education and how would it help to protect biodiversity? US EPA defines environmental protection as a process that allows individuals to explore environmental issues. That is the first part. They engage in problem solving and take action to improve the environment. I think the world as a whole, we have now explored the environmental issues. We have engaged on tables in problem solving. It's left with the last part, taking action to improve the environment. And the beauty of environmental education is that you don't wait for the global or the national to take an action. As long as you are aware and you are practicing it at the household level, at the district level, at the local level, it can be practiced. So action is not like a national something, but anyone that is environmentally educated takes action on his own. And the term was first used from the Conservation Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources in Paris in 1948. You could understand that there is a link between environmental education and biodiversity. It's because of conservation that environmental education came about. And throughout the years, from the Stockholm Conference in 1972, they made a recommendation that there should be an international program on that. And the first intergovernmental conference on environmental education was organized by UNESCO and UNEP. That was in 1977. So environmental education is old. And the main component of environmental education is first being aware and sensitive to the environment and environmental challenges around us. Unfortunately, majority of the world, we are at the first level, awareness and sensitivity. Some have progressed to the level of knowledge and understanding of the environment and environmental challenges. Now, to understand the environment cannot be achieved through awareness creation. The people must be schooled. Then, from the knowledge that they will gain, they build attitude of concerns for the environment, which will motivate them to improve and maintain environmental quality. And because now they have attitude, they attain skills. And all these are part of the education. You have the attitude and the skill, which will help you resolve environmental challenges. And finally, if you have all this and you are not participating, that is the action part. You are not participating to resolve the challenges we are having, then we can say you have fully attained environmental education. What are some of the legislation globally on environmental education? The US was the first to implement an act, that's the National Environmental Education Act of 1990. And this map shows countries that have national policies on environment, or they have environmental laws, which is specifically on environmental education or related to environmental education. United States, Brazil, Japan, Philippines, Republic of Korea, and Taiwan. Taiwan is the recent. They have specific legislation or policy on environmental education. It's specific. The others, like Finland, France, Ghana, Mozambique, and South Africa, they have environmental laws that are related to environmental education. They don't have specific laws yet. They run programs on environmental education, but they are yet to have specific acts or legislation on environmental education. UNESCO urges that in 2025, environmental education will be a core curriculum in all countries. That is their target, that in 2025, we are in 2023, 2 years to go. And even on environmental laws and education policies, it's only few countries that have them. So I don't know how this will be achieved, but let's hope that it's possible, because until we come to that level that everybody knows about the environment, it will be difficult to protect it. These are a few case studies. I brought out a few case studies on, first on tree cover, comparing global to some of the African countries where we have environmental laws and countries without environmental laws. According to the global records, global tree cover, mostly biodiversity are conserved in forest, is the highest source of is the ocean followed by forest, but on the terrestrial is the forest. So from the forest, Russia recorded the highest loss from 2001 to 2021, that is 20 years, followed by Brazil, Canada, United States, and Indonesia. Then I tried to compare Ghana to the world. The forest lost in Ghana globally is at 41. That is globally. But when you compare it on the decadal decline of forest, it is equivalent to about 20% decrease since 2000. Since 2000, forest in Ghana has decreased by 20%. But you would understand this when you compare it with the forest area of the nations. Assuming a country has about 200 mega hectares of forest and they lose 10, they lose 10, you might think, oh, 10 is not that much. But if they have, let's say, 20 and 10 mega hectares is lost, then that is almost like 50%. So you will see Ghana being at 41. You might think, oh, that is not much. But because when you compare it to our forest coverage or tree cover coverage, this forest loss, it's very high. And there's a need to control it if we want to preserve biodiversity. Then I brought Congo. According to UN, Congo has the highest biological diversity in Africa. The Democratic Republic of Congo, they possess Africa's highest biological diversity. And about 190, and this diversity has both global and local relevance. The biological diversity or biodiversity in Congo is just like the Amazon. It doesn't affect only Brazil. It affects the world. It controls the climate. It affects a lot of things. And 190 species are currently endangered. probably due to land use change. They are endangered. And this country, according to the GEP records, they don't have a policy on environmental education. There is an association on environmental education in the country, but there's no policy on it. And it ranks sixth globally from Global Watch for Forest Watch from 2000 to 2021. Forest lost in Democratic Republic of Congo is sixth in the world. I brought some images from Google Maps to show you what is happening in Ghana. This is a case study of Ghana. There's a prime basin where I do most of my work. I picked just one part. This line here is River Pra or Pra River. You can see the color. And this is as a result of Galamsey in Ghana. Galamsey is illegal small-scale mining. So, and what they do is they divert water to wash the stones that they mine. And after that, they reconnect the water with the polluted water to the mainstream. So all these spots you see in the forest are places that have been degraded because of Galamsey, all these spots that you see here. And you can take time to check rivers in Ghana and most African countries where these small-scale illegal mining are currently ongoing. Forests are being depleted, water bodies are being destroyed, and it is affecting the two major sources of biodiversity, the major sources of biodiversity that is supporting livelihood, the terrestrial and the aquatic or marine. So there is another one from Ofin. It's another river that I work on. You see, along the river channels, all these degradations you are seeing is supposed to be a buffer, forest buffer for the river, but they are all degraded. And this could be traced to the lack of environmental education in our country. We might have it as a law, but how many of the people who are passing through our education system even know about it at the first level, or gone to the second level of knowledge or having concerns for the environment, and to even talk of attaining skills and attitude to protect the environment. Our record shows that these are students, school-going age, people who are supposed to be in school, and they are being used for these activities. And for us to solve it, I think environmental education should include a major stakeholder, that is the indigenous people. The indigenous people must be involved. According to UNEP, the indigenous people as of 2017 was about 370 million. And these people are managing about 80% of the world's biodiversity. And so how have they managed it till now? They should have certain level of knowledge, which would help the scientific community, even in the development of innovations, to protect our biodiversity. And that report states that areas managed by indigenous people are the oldest form of biodiversity conservation and often the most effective. This implies that until they become part, until we use the phenomenon of co-production, not co-sharing, not that we create the knowledge and go and share with them, not that they come and suggest, and we start everything with them, we will not be able to manage biodiversity, even through environmental education, for the sustenance of livelihood. Biodiversity conservation is synonymous to sustainable development, sustainability. until we are able to preserve our biological diversity, we cannot sustain our world. So Tan said that the indigenous and local communities, they have deep and rich source of traditional knowledge, which we will need to increase the protection for the fragile landscapes that is a land use and the diversity that it presents. And so we need to bring them on board. We need to bring them on board, the indigenous people. I think this is the end of my presentation. I hope that I've not used most of the about 30 minutes. I've not gone beyond. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bessa. That was a beautiful overview of the whole topic. And then thank you so much for giving us the definitions as well as the history behind some of these concepts and where we stand now. We totally agree that we have talked a lot, and that is important to keep doing that and also bring different voices to the table, including Indigenous voices. But equally important now is action, so that we can meet some of those upcoming targets. You were mentioning 2025, so here we are at 2023, and if we want to reach that target, surely more people will have to get involved. So that's why we're having this webinar today, is to inform people how they can get involved in this topic. So thank you so much again, Dr. Bessa. That was a beautiful presentation and very information rich. Congratulations. And if anybody has questions, please do write them down and we'll come to them after our second speaker, where we will go just now. So just to introduce our second speaker, we're excited to have with us Mr. Olumide Idowu. Olu is a climate change activist from Nigeria. He promotes environmental awareness and a balanced approach to the growth and protection of the environment. He is as concerned about development as he is about climate change and environmental protection. His conservation work is spread over a variety of venues. He's been actively involved in climate change activism for the past 12 years and is strategically positioned to engage both younger and older generations through his active engagement in climate change organizations and social media, where he is known as Mr. Climate. So Mr. Climate, welcome. We're so happy to have you here, and we're sure from that introduction that your presentation is going to be very complementary to what Dr. Bessa has just shared with us. So Olumide, passing it over to you. Welcome, and you're most welcome to share your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Doctor. You know, it makes me to look as if I'm back in the class when he was teaching. And I can tell you all that that is the foundation and the basics of what we want to actually discuss today. Thank you so much for bringing me on board and to speak to diverse of, young, old people across the continent. Thank you so much. And, from what Doctor have actually shared with us, I think we don't really have too much to say on the basics of biodiversity. I just want to start by saying that the system that's actually sustained all the life on Earth, including human life, are dependent on biodiversity to function properly. And that is why you see we both, ourselves, everybody on this call, is having the opportunity to live on Earth. And we are unable to also have early ecosystem upon which we relate to give us with the food that we eat and even the air that we breathe. If we do not have what we call diverse collection of animals, plants, and microorganisms. And from what Doctor have shared with us, we've been able to understand that biodiversity is actually the bedrock of development, bedrock of growth when it comes to economy, when it comes to development, when it comes to growth individually. And also, 3 things I want us to put in mind as we are having this conversation: the food you eat, the house umbrella where you stay, and the clothes you wear. Look at all these things. Look at the foundation of where they are coming from. People say we should not cut trees, but we are building houses. People say we should, eat sustainably, but people keep eating both animals, everything. Even the clothes we are making, remember, 7 to 15 of PET bottles makes a jersey. So all these things I just talked about, 3 things I just mentioned, are the set of things that you and I cannot do without. Can you be inside the sun and be joining this Zoom call and you have good environment? No. Is it possible for you when you want to sleep in the night, you don't have a shade on you? No. Can you walk naked in the community? No. So our biodiversity lies within our society, lies within the comfort zone of where we find ourselves. Now, we need to now start looking at what are the urgent actions. We have a lot of academics, activists, even women in biodiversity, young people doing fantastic work. But the bottom line is, how do we start building collaboration? How do we start building attitudinal change? And how do we start building sustainable living in our society? So the conversation of biodiversity is very, very detailed when we want to build conservation, that practice of protecting and preserving the wealth and the variety of species, habitats, ecosystem, and even the genetic diversity on the planet. It's also very important for the health, for the wealth, for the food, for the fuel, and services we depend on. I'm saying this because biodiversity to me has shown to me as a development and as a growth to a society we find ourselves. And it actually play an integral role in supporting many sectors of development. So anywhere you find yourself, whether in the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Humanitarian, Ministry of Petroleum, every ministry, biodiversity can never be taken away. So we need to start looking at this. I want to mention, number 1, food security, how it actually depends upon natural resources that form the basis of our food production. We should not forget that. Secondly, biodiversity conservation is very vital for the economic development and our poverty reduction. Thirdly, we should also put at the back of our mind, to relate it to climate change, that biodiversity conservation can help address the effects of climate change, which is very, very key in this kind of conversation. And Doctor have already laid emphasis on all the treaties, all the interventions, and even all the generation of how biodiversity became and where we are going to for future. And how do we now talk about natural resources that are often at the root of all conflicts? Because if you look at the value chain now, you see that the natural resources we have across the world, most of them are even causing crises. Most of them are causing conflicts. And these are the things that have been given to us by nature. Then it's now left for us as humans to start looking how not to mismanage the natural resources and harming the biodiversity that can increase poverty, instability in our society. You and I need to start looking at how can we help communities and individuals to actually secure the rights of our natural resources or the use of our natural resources. And now we can start involving different local agencies, local communities in responding to manage all these natural resources. It is very, very key. in us to see how we can prevent and minimize conflicts and provide diverse of opportunities for economic growth. So for me, as an individual, I'm from Nigeria, and when you look at the biodiversity space in Nigeria, majority of things that we talk about as our income is oil and gas. So you will understand that we are facing a very powerful problem when it comes to natural resources, because all these things have taken away our diversity, our biodiversity, in the essence that farmers cannot fish again to get fish in the water again. Fishermen cannot fish, the farmers cannot plant and cannot grow in the northern let me say it, there's a region in my country called Niger Delta. Is a region that's supposed to be enjoying the biodiversity we see now, but because of what we call oil spillage, because of what we call gas flaring, then is now a big problem for our development and for the growth of that kind of a community. So it's very, very important for you and I to start raising our voice. You know, most of us might not have the money, but we have the voices, we have the understanding, we have some of us have the technical experts that can actually change the narrative of the conversation that we are seeing as our country or as a continent. And we should start to understand that biodiversity conservation will help us to protect our plants, our animal, our microbial, our resources. Then, at the same time, unsustainable agricultural production and the use of wild species for food or fuel can reduce biodiversity. Everybody is calling for just transition. Why are we talking about it? Because we want to see a just environment, we want to see a just community, we want to see a just in continuity when it comes to handing over from one government to another. Because what is happening now is that we have a lot of deniers in the space, and those deniers are making the environment space polluted. When somebody starts something to protect the nature, protect the environment, somebody comes in and spoil everything, and we started facing the consequences of what the environment is going to give to us. So this is things that we need to start looking at if we really want to grow our economy. It is very, very important. And that is why we see that the word poor people live in rural areas are depending upon the forests, depends on the water, depends on wetlands, and all other issues for their livelihood. If all these things are being taken away, what do you want them to use in producing or getting sustainable living for themselves? So it is very critical for us to start looking at ways to protect our biodiversity, ways we need to start looking at to make sure that we make the government being accountable and transparent in supporting the growth of our biodiversity. So biodiversity support to community is key. Biodiversity support to economic benefit is key. And we also need to start looking at how can we ensure food security. And all this can be done with collective efforts, with collaboration, and with the development of every society that believes in growth. And that is the only way we can have a future that is just, a future that is free from food insecurity, food insecurity, a future that has clean air and water, a future that can appreciate natural resources and the food stocks, and a future that prevents us from diseases and pests. This is how we can build a quality of life for people and the planet. Let me just bring it down to we, the younger generation, that we are facing one of the consequences of this issue. And I want to urge everybody on this call, whether you are young, whether you are old, that the time to take action may not even be now. It was yesterday, because today is also yesterday, and tomorrow will be yesterday, and the future we have is now. So it is better for us to start looking at what action can we invest in that will be continual process that can build a continuity, not a process that we just tackle the problem now and we leave them and nothing happens after that. Because the more we approach different communities to solve problem, the more problem comes up in different communities. So the only thing we can start doing now to protect our biodiversity is to build attitudinal change in the people we talk to, in the people we relate to, so that everybody will not be only looking at the academic part, but they'll be looking at the reality part. Then the academic part can now supplement the kind of research that will take us to have the outcome that we want to see in the people we live in the community. Mind you, and let us know that even the people, we are also a problem to our biodiversity. So we need to start changing the attitude for them to know that there are a set of actions, there are a set of attitude we need to put into our biodiversity for us to see a better future for everybody. We talk about the UN Biodiversity Convention. All those things are meant for the governance, policy, but when it comes to the grassroots, I'm sure everybody know about this adage. They say, when two elephants are fighting, it's the grass that suffers it. When the UN is demanding from the government, when the UN is demanding from institution, who is demanding from the local community for a sustainable growth? Nobody. Rather, the government in each country is responsible for the development of their local community. So we, the local people, we people living in the community, we are seeking for just transition in every nook and cranny of biodiversity, so that we will find ourselves in a space whereby we can breathe clean air, we can have clean water, and we can be able to associate with the lifestyle and the quality life we want to live as people and the planets. And various lifestyle and cultural custom cannot actually survive without the nature that depends on them. So it is very important that you and I, as an individual, to understand that this conversation is more than treaties. This conversation is more than UN Biodiversity Convention. This conversation is more than that budget you set aside for biodiversity. It's about you and I to take action that will lead us to a future that we want to see ourselves, and that will make us to protect our biodiversity for the betterment of the society. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olumide, for your passionate speech and beautiful call to action for everybody, and also for reminding us that these issues are not just in the hands of others and of leaders or people in positions of authority, but these are issues that are actually in our hands, right? And so the power is in the grassroots. Thank you also for reminding us about attitudinal change. I think somebody once said, if you want to make a small change, you can change the way you do things. But if you want to make a big change, you would change the way you see things, right? And then a lot more can change from there. Thank you so much again. It's no wonder that they call you Mr. Climate. We're so lucky to have your voice and your leadership and your inspiration to guide us all in taking action on climate change and biodiversity issues. So thank you so much again.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's go to questions, everybody. So I think just to start with one question for both of our speakers. The thing that's, I think, exciting for people potentially about focusing on biodiversity is that it's all about where you are, right? So biodiversity varies by region, varies by area of the planet, and is all about understanding the natural system, the ecosystems around you. So let's first ask both of our speakers. We can start with Dr. Bessa, and then we'll go to Olumide. What are some of the key actions that you're taking on biodiversity where you are? So First, we'll look at Ghana, and then we'll look at Nigeria. So what are some of the key ways to preserve biodiversity in both of your locations? This is just going to give us some idea and ground us and show us how this is really a place-based strategy that we have to take. So first, we can start with Dr. Bessa. How are things in Ghana?
Thank you, Katie. Key actions. I was talking about galamsey. It's a national problem in Ghana now, and the major impact is our biodiversity, that is our forest resource and our water bodies. They are degrading at a very fast rate. So currently, my action, what I'm doing is to find out what are the benefits from these systems that are not for sale. And because of that, we are neglecting them. So I have a couple of researchers that are looking into how much would clean air from a forest cost, assuming I'm going to buy it. And so, around the world, from the scientific community, we've not been able to come up with a concrete or specific approach of quantifying these things. So that is what I'm doing now. And on the action part, I engage a lot of farmers. One of my projects today is looking at how the local communities, local farmers, conserve diversity through their farming activities. It's an ongoing project now. And through that, we'll be creating awareness, training the farmers on how to leave some trees on their farm, not just for the benefit of getting a wood resource, but the other non-timber resources or benefit. Also on water, there are, in climate change, we're also looking at how farmers would benefit from this ecological, what do we call it? Indigenous knowledge, how they use ecological indicators to determine what happens around them. It's also another project that we are doing. So we've trained farmers, we've given them mobile phones, and daily they look at the environment, what is happening. And based on that, they are able to predict the changes in the climate and how it will affect their activities. And so when the farmers have come to realize that because of the changes in the ecology, they are not able to get their prediction right. And so it's creating that awareness that destroying what is around them is limiting the ability to know what will happen tomorrow. So currently, beside the personal ones I'm doing for myself, on project scale, these are what we are doing in Ghana. There are other national ones, but personally, this is what I'm involved in. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's great. And how about you, Olumide?
Okay, sorry, my mic was so. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Doctor. I think looking at the two countries, I think we both have some set of challenges and threats when it comes to biodiversity. But biodiversity in Nigeria is actually seriously under the threat, of extinction even from climate change, economic development, land use change, from agriculture, invasive species, and even pollution like crude oil exploration and exploitation. These are really, a big threat even to mainly our mangroves, our deforestation, desert encroachment, that is over hunting, even a lot of land use, road, residential buildings, constructions. You can see when I started my presentation, I actually make emphasis on 3 different things, which is the source of livelihood. And these are the things that we're actually facing when it comes to and looking at our biodiversity, again, the challenges in Nigeria. In the northern part of the country, we will see the level of deforestation, level of desert encroachment. And when you come down to the south, you will see the level of the issue of gas flaring, issue of oil spillage. And when you come to the southwest, that's where you start seeing bunch of land use problem, road and residential building construction. If you are in the news for a couple of months now, you see a building collapsing and everything. So this is affecting the people a lot. And let me tell you, one of the biggest things that I think we need to start doing, and which we have been advocating for a while, and there are many governmental agencies in charge of environmental matters that they work at, that cross purpose to the extent that a lot of actions that need to be taken within themselves is not working. Synergy that's supposed to be happening between them to have a solution that is inclusive is not working. So they need to take responsibility to actually put that measure of sustainability in place. And even conservation projects are seriously threatened by economic development. So all these things are very, very, key, because we cannot continue like this. The civil society organization across the country are clamoring, helping the government to come up with different actions, different stakeholders engagement for them to understand what the communities are going through. But the problem is they are not ready to put that in check. And we will not stop. We will continue to speak so that the threat of climate change or threat to climate change will continue to decrease, so that we can have maximum and understanding of the problem and be able to give a sustainable solution to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Olumide. I think we can see the importance of having environmental education at the country level, because even you're talking about in the northern part of Nigeria versus the southern part, there's different issues that we're facing. So you can see if we have one curriculum that's, global or regional, then it's not going to be able to capture those localized issues. I think you can also see how there are so many different factors. So you're talking about what are some of the drivers of biodiversity. You have land use change, you have gas flaring, you have economic development, you have climate change. There are a lot of different factors that are interconnected together. One other question that comes up out of that, which is for both of you again, is really, when we're talking about just transition, economic development and biodiversity preservation and sustainability are oftentimes kind of clashing in the strategies that we have for them. And people are, it's not that they don't know, the importance of preserving the area around them. It's that they're in a tough spot, right, where they have limited options in terms of what they can do, and they end up getting forced to use the resources around them to achieve what these basics of life that you're talking about. So food, shelter, clothes, right? These are some of the basics that we can't live without. So when people get forced into difficult positions, right, poverty, lack of options, lack of resources, and they get forced to use the resources around them because they have no other option. What can we really do about that? So how can we start to ensure that we're creating options for people and really turning, this kind of negative cycles into positive cycles? Because as you're saying, by building biodiversity is really building the base for human life to be able to thrive as well. So how can we really turn some of those negative cycles what Dr. Bessa is talking about with people coming to do mining on the rivers. This is out of necessity, right, as well. So environmental education will add to the land use and to natural resource use, but it's also from a lack of options. So the question is really, how can we create options for people to be able to start that positive cycle? That's a big, long question, I know, but maybe you both have some thoughts on that. Do we want to start? Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Let me quickly let you know that biodiversity, just transition is a broad conversation on its own. And we also need to understand that biodiversity, along with climate protection, is also a labor issue, like we know. And just transition is the way to tackle it. Just transition is just moving from one place to another and making sure that it is a just movement. And as a community, because I love talking about community, you'll be able to understand that all jobs depend on every environment and the protection of nature. And that is the only thing everybody wants to hear. That is the only thing community want to listen to. Provide us a job that is sustainable. Give us an environment that is just. So for you to now start looking at that kind of action, then we need to also understand that a just transition leads to a social and environmental justice. So environmental justice is also, that a situation that builds hope, that can build our hope and can be a trust in the future that puts people and nature as a priority. But looking at what people need to start thinking about is very, very key. Number one, social justice that serve as a drive to our our ecological transition. And that is why when I was talking about in southeast of Nigeria, we're talking about ecological transition that can transform the society or the environment to be just. And that is why our biodiversity conversation in the higher level need to start looking at ecological thinking, building massive attention in people so that we can see the social justice we are talking about. And you should also know that a just transition should also be able to, we call it underscore a new social contract, that you need to have a dialogue, you need to have a community, a conversation with people in the community before you take action or you take any responsibility on their land, on their space. It is very, very key that there should be a dialogue with such community. And we also need to start looking at how can we control the demography, and so that the democratic issue can be a common ground for everybody. Because when you are taking decision, let me give a very good example. When you are taking a decision, I remember COP21 in Paris, my country took a decision about joining the Paris Agreement, for instance. But there was no consultation in the local country to even understand why you are taking decision on behalf of people. So we keep going on and taking decision on behalf of millions of people back home without having a consultation with them. And that is why you see that when it's time for implementation, it's always a problem because the community don't even understand what you are trying to invest into. So it is a big problem for us. And that is why the role of civil society here is to help the government to complement their efforts in building that just transition they want to see in such community. So it is very, very key that you don't leave the community behind when you want to decide on them. People say, give us the table. No, we have been getting the table for years. We want to be part of the implementation now. Let us know how you are investing. We call it investment opportunity. That is the only thing that the community wants to see when it comes to biodiversity issue. So that is my contribution on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Olu. Absolutely right. Dr. Bessa, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yes, thank you, Getty. My stand is The answer is in all-inclusive environmental education. All-inclusive environmental education, not just awareness creation. You know, awareness creation is just just a tip. When people are informed or educated about the environment, no matter how difficult the situation they find themselves in, they will not go for an option that will destroy their future. It's just like what we call, sustainable development. There's a course I teach, environmental impact assessment. You would always think about an option that will not deny the future the opportunities they will need to have in meeting their own needs. So because you are not eating today, you are destroying the water bodies to eat today. What about tomorrow? That is because the person is not educated about the environment. Environmental education is the solution. The policy, we think that people who are in policy know about it. No. If they know about it, they will be practicing it. And so until that 5 components of the environmental education is seen, we shouldn't think that people know about it. They don't know. They've heard about it, doesn't mean they know about it. And it should be all inclusive through co-learning, where the indigenous people are brought on board, the scientific, the policy makers, we are learning together. That is how we'll become sustainable and solve these issues. Else, it will be only from one angle. And we'll be just talking. There will be no action. And that's what I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bessa. Yes, good points. I think we have time for one more question before we wrap it up. So we've been talking about the grassroots action and the importance of individuals learning, and also through your efforts in teaching environmental education. But we also have the reality that there is biodiversity loss being driven by other actors. So we have companies, we have governments contributing to biodiversity loss. So the question is, how can we encourage businesses and governments to adopt more sustainable practices and support biodiversity conservation? And environmental education could factor into that. So your thoughts to both of our speakers on how businesses are contributing and how we can also encourage businesses to adopt more sustainable practices.
Thank you, Katie. I want to start. You know, businesses are contributing to climate change mitigation through what they call carbon crediting. And this is how it works. A company in China or in the US would be polluting the environment, and that company will pay a community in somewhere else where they have forest that be involved in reforestation, grow trees, measure the amount of carbons that forest is sequestering from the environment. Then we pay you. So we release carbon, you sequester carbon through your activities, then we pay you credit for what you are doing on our behalf. I think those programs and policies should be extended to cover environmental education. Not only the credit, not only paying credit for carbon that has been captured by activities of, let's say, farmers or by tree growers, but those who are being trained, there should be facility available through those policies for training, educating, empowering people to know what to do. If only we are focusing on how much carbon the person is sequestering from the environment through biodiversity restoration, then only those who have lands, those directly involved in agroforestry, will be benefiting. And for instance, educators will be neglected. We need to include them into these programs. And also, there should be facility available in every country to support environmental education. Like companies have social responsibilities. It shouldn't be building of schools, providing water, pipeline water, like mining companies in Ghana, in Africa, or oil companies, or we've done this for this community. We have done that, we've built this. Only physical facilities. What about the ones that cannot be seen? Mental facility. It should be included in those policies that want to know how many people have you trained? What is the evidence that these people are trained? And if they are trained, it should be shown by their attitude, the skill they have in the community. We should go to the level of adding these things to what we already have. Thank you.
Okay, great. So broadening it out, finding ways for everybody to be able to participate in these new credit schemes for ecosystem services and carbon credits, and not just measuring transactional things, but measuring, attitudinal change in people's skill development. That's great. Thank you. Olu, over to you.
Yeah, I don't think I have much to say because Doctor have actually, I think I've learned the second part of his conversation also, because the same thing happened in my country, Nigeria, through their social responsibility, that a lot of companies are just doing something just for a media purpose. But when it comes to what are the outcome of that action they've carried out, how do we see it changing the narrative of our environment or narrative of the education we want to see? And another thing again that I think stands out is majorly environmental education is like a bedrock of building your future environment. And it only helps when you understand something, then you'll be able to relate to it. So the issue of businesses and whatsoever need to be inculcated for people to understand that environmental education actually helps you when you want to even think about investments, when you want to think about production, and when you want to think about action that you need to take to grow or to, or to develop the community you want to find yourself. So I think Doctor said it very well, but I just want to add that education is critical, then environmental education is more important, so that every one of us will be well informed and will be able to understand what these businesses are bringing to us, whether it's greenwashing or not, so that we'll be able to leverage on the understanding we have from environmental education point of view, and to be able to grow the community or economy. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So knowledge is power, and the more informed we are, the more that we can hold companies accountable and make sure that they are showing up and really, when they're making commitments, that they're following through on those and taking them very seriously, because all of our well-being and the well-being of those other species that depend on the biodiversity around us depends on that. So thank you so much to both of you. I think we'll bring this to a close here. We tried to keep these sessions short and very informative. So because of both of your wonderful presentations, I believe that people will know that they can come to you as a resource and as environmental educators and as leaders on topics of climate change and biodiversity. So thank you again so much, Dr. Enoch Bessa and Olumide Idowu, or Mr. Climate. We encourage everybody to find them after this session and to keep connected as you go on your own journeys of environmental education and also action. So I think that's the theme from today, is that not only do we need to educate ourselves and those around us, but we need to move towards action. We are a community, so we're not taking action by ourselves, we're doing it together. And that's really what PAC policy is all about. So that brings us to thanking our team. So we have a big team behind this webinar series. So thank you so much. We want to give some thanks to the people who helped to put this together. Angie, Rachel, Bismarck, Faith, Tim, Jervis, Sean, Ewi, Awudu Salam, and of course, Kwame Frempong. Thank you so much to the team. You can see them all coming on now. Thank you guys very much. I think we'll just close with what's a step that we can take in terms of action going from today. At the beginning, Dr. Bessa shared with us that the UN International Biodiversity Day is on May 22nd. So that's coming up. That's in less than 1 month. So you can look online what's happening for that day, May 22nd, and think about what can you do in your community to take action around that. So thank you so much to our great speakers. We learned a lot today, and we will be following along with your work as we go forward. Thank you, everyone, and wishing you a wonderful rest of the morning, afternoon, or evening.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you, and good luck with with your work from here forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.